Gluten sensitivity is also known as gluten intolerance. This is an umbrella term for a lot of diseases, like an autoimmune disorder like celiac disease, amongst a number of other illnesses. Gluten is actually a protein that comes from certain grains. So, hi guys, my name's Elizabeth, and I'm going to be talking today about gluten. I am an intern for the Marion County Public Health Department, and by tuning in today, you have taken the initiative to learn about your health. So, today's lesson, as I said, we're going to be talking all about gluten. And for the needed materials for this lesson, you're going to need access to an electronic device, which is how you're watching me, several pieces of paper, a couple pencils, and the ability to take a little quiz, which I will give at during the activity of this lesson. So, today we're going to be learning about food and diet and how gluten can have an impact on the body, what gluten is, and how to eat healthy when you're trying to avoid gluten. So, gluten is in a family of proteins that are found in grains, including wheat, rye, smelt, barley. And of all of these, wheat is by far the most common. Everybody probably eats several products with wheat in them every single day. Grains are a large portion of the food groups, and it is important to keep educated on where gluten is found and what types are best to eat, especially if there is a gluten sensitivity, allergy, or condition. Today, we're going to talk a little bit more about the importance of eating a healthy and balanced meal that can include gluten, but in limited amounts if that's what you need. So let's talk a little bit about food. Now that I've told you that gluten comes from grains and wheat products, you might be wondering, well, what foods have grain in them? And here's a couple of foods that have no wheat products, no gluten in them whatsoever. And these would include fresh fruit and vegetables, beans, seeds, legumes, which are a different type of beans, nuts, as long as they are natural and unprocessed. A couple others also include eggs, lean and unprocessed meats, fish, and poultry, as well as many low-fat dairy products. So these would all be perfectly fine for someone with a sensitivity, an allergen, or a serious disorder like celiac. So what are grains? What are grains that are able to be eaten if you do have a gluten sensitivity? Well, a couple of these would be arrowroot, buckwheat, corn, flax. There are specific gluten-free flours that you can buy that are like rice flour, soy flour, corn flour, and potato and bean flours, as well as hominy, millet, and quinoa. Quinoa is actually one of my favorites. It's delicious and it is completely gluten-free. A couple others are rice, sorghum, and soy. But you always want to make sure to check the label on the food product that you're buying, especially if it's a very serious condition for you to not intake gluten. So a question that I know you're probably wondering is, what grains are not allowed in a gluten-free diet? And the main ones are wheat, barley, rye, and oats in some cases, as long as they're not marketed as gluten-free. So you've heard me mention celiac disease several times, and I am here to tell you that it is a disease, which is an immune reaction to eating gluten. This condition means that when you do eat gluten and you have celiac disease, it triggers an immune response in the small intestine, which is in the stomach. And this reaction can cause inflammation and damage to the inside of the small intestine. And if you don't know, the small intestine is where most of our nutrients are absorbed in our bodies. And if you have continual damage to the small intestine, which celiacs do if they're eating gluten products, then the intestine becomes inflamed and cannot take in any nutrients whatsoever, and this would be called malabsorption. Now, I know it's a scary word, but it's a scary word for a scary reason. It's because malabsorption means you're not getting any of the nutrients that you need for your body to function properly, and this can be especially serious if this is happening in young children. This intestinal damage often can cause a variety of complications such as diarrhea, fatigue, weight loss, bloating, and anemia. And if you have all of those and you notice something might be wrong with your body, there's a possibility that you may have celiac disease or another gluten intolerance or allergy. Celiac and other gluten-sensitive conditions can cause growth issues in children and other serious issues in adults, so you should always be aware of what your body's telling you when you're eating gluten products. There is no cure for celiac disease and other gluten sensitivity issues, but for most people, if you follow a diet of gluten-free products, you can manage the symptoms extremely well, and that promotes intestinal healing, which means you're able to get all the nutrients your body needs to continue working just properly. Some of the symptoms for gluten allergies, which you may not know, just to be on the lookout for so you can educate yourself and others, would be bloating, abdominal discomfort, constipation or diarrhea, and sometimes even headache, tingling, numbness in the hands or feet, and fatigue. But just be aware that these do vary widely in everybody, including varying in adults and children. So I've talked a lot about grain products today, but I have not really talked a lot about how to eat a well and balanced diet. And a great resource for that would be the My Plate, which is an FDA-sponsored type of image that tells you exactly what to eat every day and how to make sure you're getting the perfect portions for what you need to keep your body well-maintained and happy. So I'm going to discuss how other food groups should be eaten every day, especially fruits and vegetables, and how leaning on these products can cut down on trans fats, cholesterol, sodium, calories, and increase your amount of vitamins and nutrients, protein, and fiber that you're getting in your diet. So it's extremely important to have a varied and portion-controlled diet, especially for people who are gluten intolerant. So now we're going to go on to the activity. So give yourself a second. If you have to pause that video, that's fine. There's a link in the description where you can click and go straight to the activity. So today's activity is actually going to be through me. I'm going to be giving you orally a short quiz. So take the time to take your paper out, number it 1 through 10, and use your pencils and papers and get ready for this little quiz we're about to take. Okay, so the first question. Is there a cure for gluten allergies or celiac disease? And the next question is going to be, what organ is caused damage by eating gluten for those with celiac? Question number 3, what is one symptom of those who do have celiac disease? And you can just choose one out of the several that I've named. Question number 4, what gluten product is most common? Question number 5, name one food product that does not have any gluten in it, and that can just be one out of the several that I've named again. What is another name for gluten sensitivity? Question number 6. Question number 7, are gluten allergies an immune disorder or not? And question number 7, which is the last question. Out of all of the grains, are refined bleached grains better than whole? Okay, once you've answered all 8 of these questions, have the person next to you switch papers, and you can go through and grade their responses. There will be the answers in the description to this video, and you can use to grade the persons. And make sure that if they did get a question wrong, that you put the right answer, just so they can have that knowledge. And then once you're done grading, return it to your neighbor, and we'll continue with the after activity discussion. Okay. So for this discussion, I want you guys to talk amongst yourself and just tell me what you learned, or tell each other what you learned. I would also like to know, how often do you guys eat grains? And of those grains, are most of them whole grains or unrefined? Or where do you get most of your grains when you eat during the day? Alright, and that about wraps up today's lesson. Today we've talked about the importance of food groups in maintaining good health. We have learned that gluten can be dangerous for those with an allergy or sensitivity. We have also learned that diseases like celiac disease and gluten allergies can damage the body and actually be fairly serious. Each day for good health, we should eat a variety of fruits from each of the groups. The 2 groups that we need to emphasize the most in our diets are fruit and vegetables. But we also want to make sure that we're eating grains, just that they're whole grains, because they're a lot healthier for you and have more vitamins and nutrients. We should try to eat more of these foods every single day, and by eating more of these and utilizing portion control, gluten-sensitive diets can be managed. So for the recipe for this lesson, it's going to be a delicious gluten-free macaroni and cheese recipe, and that will also be in the link of this description. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks for tuning into this lesson.